Welcome to Project Comedy, a podcast by and for military veterans doing stand-up comedy, turning military banter into quality stand-up comedy acts. We might be veterans, but our comedy aims to get everybody laughing. It's one thing to think you're funny. It's very different to start writing your own material. This isn't just making your mates at the pub laugh every 5 minutes. When you're doing stand-up, you need to be getting your audience laughing a minimum of 8 times a minute. And every gag has to be your own. Not something you've been told years ago, not borrowing gags from another comedian, but gags that are 100% you. Then comes the next hurdle. You might have written a few gags, but do you have enough to fill a 5-minute slot? That's 300 seconds. What if you get good and bookers like you? Do you have enough to fill a 10-minute slot? That's a minimum of 80 punchlines. With the right training, it could be between 150 and 200 punchlines. Then realize to get a paying gig, you're going to need a minimum of 120 gags to fill the magical 50-minute show. Then comes the new comedian's biggest fear. How do I remember all of that material? How do you recall all of those gags in a way that it becomes a show? In reality, those are the wrong questions. It's all too easy that you have to think that you're focusing on memorizing the words. But that doesn't make it funny. It'll make you sound like you're reading off a sheet of paper. You have to memorize the attitudes because that's what brings the color. And it's how you build your set that enables you to jump from one gag to the next. It's the construction of your set that keeps people laughing and keeps you on track. So, how do you build a set? As Project Comedy, we don't have the definitive answer, but what we do have is 3 ambassadors for this episode that are more than willing to share how they do it and what they've learnt. As such, I'm joined by Gabriel Murphy, a comedian so Irish that if he's admitted to A&E, he requires intravenous mashed potatoes. We're also joined by Jamie Johnson, the only man refused admission to the Jedi religion for being too much of a geek. And I'm Jay Saunders, the man with the sex appeal of a blobfish, if that blobfish has really let itself go. How you doing, guys?
Hola.
How are you now?
How's it going?
Well, before we actually get into the subject material, it would be wrong of us to miss some comedy news. Obviously, we're recording this on the Monday night for the Wednesday release, but there have been 2 stories that have come out from the Fringe. The one I think everybody knows about is Jerry Sadowitz. Jerry Sadowitz had one of his 2 nights cancelled. How much do you guys know about this story?
I've recently had a lot of university lectures and stuff and assignments to do, so I know nothing of the outside world.
So basically, my knowledge is marginally better than Gabe's. So Mr. Sadowitz is known for flying close to the knuckle. He's slightly controversial on many occasions, and the venue knew this, but obviously this particular show he did was obviously stepped over the bar of what they deemed, I'm using air quotes here, acceptable material. So
we've got
a bit of censorship by the venue, maybe, or
I think we've got to put a big caveat around this because this is all reported. None of us saw the gig, but there are some. So most of this is alleged. However, he was performing in a 1,400-seater at the Pleasance. The Pleasance is one of the biggest comedy venues in the Fringe. I mean, it is,
by the way,
it's top of the bloody. Say again.
He's playing to full house, as far as I know.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't. Apparently, it was just under half full.
Okay.
He claims there were no walkouts. The Pleasance claim there were lots of walkouts, and the staff got abused on the way out because of the material. It's claim and counterclaim. What has been reported now? First and foremost, yes, he is a shock jock. He's a shock comedian. He was big in the 80s and early 90s. He's not really been known on the scene massively since then. And the name of the show was Not For Anyone. Okay.
Unless
allegedly,
Gabe would be fine.
I'd have been sat there not even laughing. Yeah, that's fine. What's up with you?
Allegedly, what he did at one point was he was on stage and then got his dick out and waved it in the face of one of the women in the front row.
See, now, my first question there, is it big enough to do that?
Well,
if it is...
My second thought on that is...
Go on, second thought.
Well, my second thought on that, he's a 60-year-old man. I'm 53. I'm not wagging mine around in public. I mean, these things do not improve with age. Okay? I don't necessarily need to see a 60-year-old dick waving around.
We see enough 60-year-old dicks in Parliament.
He also, apparently the material was blatant, allegedly again, it was blatant racism and misogyny, using lots of derogatory terms that, we were discussing this last week, Gabe. There are certain words you do and do not use. But apparently he was, apparently the P word was coming out. He was talking about the black community quite badly. He was apparently being quite misogynistic. He even rounded one of these up into a single gag that I've read. I'm not going to repeat on this because to me, it just smells of punching down.
I was just going to say that. And that's a basic faux pas to me. Even as a novice comedian, I wouldn't do that.
I'll also point in, Al Murray has actually defended him. Al Murray tweeted, what was the exact quote? Neither you or I know the joke and the line's context. Absolutely true. We don't.
Yeah. Valid.
But for a venue like the Pleasance to go, that's enough. You're cancelled. As I said, it's one of the biggest venues out there. They've had every form of comedian. There must have been something that suddenly for them to decide, right, you're not getting your second show.
See, I know, like I said before, I was stressing about my LGBTQ+1 gag, especially obviously when I had, lesbians and other people within the area.
Yeah,
I think if you're going to go into something that's cutting through the bone, I think you've got to make sure that it's completely funny.
Yeah,
and it's only going to get taken one way.
Well, let's analyze that joke of yours. I love the LGBTQ plus gag, but who's the butt? What is the butt of the joke in that? And it's not the people; it's the acronym.
Yeah,
it's the butt of the joke. That's what makes it funny. Nobody has been harmed in that joke. You're not saying somebody is better than somebody else by that joke. It is just going, oh my God. Oh, it's like I was saying last week. It looks like somebody's fallen on a keyboard to come out with an acronym.
Yeah, but like comparing the LGBT plus like acronym to a TV channel, and then saying like I missed out on Drag Race, I just catch it up on LGBT+1. I think that balances it all out. So it's kind of like, we're going into an area where I politically correctly shouldn't be joking about, but I am doing.
No,
I'm balancing it out.
I think we said this so many times on the podcast. You can joke about anything. It's the way you joke about it.
Yeah.
Obviously, with this thing with Jerry Sadowitz, people are there going, banging on the free speech drum, and I'm there going, I'm sorry, this is Saunders' take on it. Shut the fuck up. free speech is an oxymoron.
Free speech.
It is an it's an oxymoron. We live in a democracy. A democracy, therefore, has laws. So there are certain things you can and cannot do. So you're not allowed to do hate speech. In fact, us three were denied even more rights. We're not allowed to breach the Official Secrets Act, even though we're civilians now. So there's certain things we can't talk about. But equally, every person within this nation, there are certain subjects, certain things you cannot say. So can we get rid of this free speech bollocks? If your intent is to cause harm and then try and hide behind a veneer of, no, it was a joke, that's not a defense. That is not a defense.
It's like the whole free country thing, isn't it? It's not a free fucking country at all. If anyone hasn't cottoned onto the idea it's not a free country, you've not fucking paid a bill.
Yeah.
And if you've not paid a bill, fucking let me know how you're doing it.
So, it's a free country. I'm going to be Jimmy Carr and never pay tax again for the rest of my life. And you will find me in Wandsworth clubs for the next 20 years.
You're either A, very naive, or B, a Daily Mail reader.
Or both.
Yeah, mutually exclusive.
In fact, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it. To be a Daily Mail reader and believe it, you've got to be fucking naive. Thank you to read any newspaper and believe it, you've got to be fucking naive. The other story, Frankie Boyle. I know this was actually an extract from Bill Bailey's documentary that's it's available on iPlayer about the Fringe and him and what have you. And Frankie came out with some quite, I don't know if I'm going to call it controversial, but he came out some. You're the one that pointed it out to me, Jamie. So you go for it. You explain what Frankie was saying.
I think he's coming out with some fairly, what I consider valid points. He was saying about the Fringe being a bit elitist. Mr. Sodergar was on about it when we did the Fringe episode a few weeks back. He was saying it wasn't representative of the nation of people that we have as a whole. It was very middle class. Most of the comedians up there are university grads. High proportion of them are at Oxbridge grads, which makes me think that us three going up there we'd be pretty exclusive.
I agree and disagree with what he was saying. If you take it from the financial point of view, what Frankie was saying, it's too expensive to go to the Fringe. And I completely agree. You're going up there to try and make it in a business. So you are now turning around to everybody going, you have to have a loss leader. If you want a career in this, you've got to lose a lot of money. Yeah. There's something morally wrong with that. You've got to spend shed loads of money to have a career. You've got to lose thousands of pounds. I did some back of a fag packet notation to work out how much it would cost Project Comedy to go up there. It's a minimum $6,500 to do the Free Fest. That's $6,500 you are going to lose. You're not going to make any money back out of it, really. A couple of £100 if you're lucky. Then this is where I sort of disagree with Frankie. He's basically taken it into class warfare, saying, I agree with this point. If you can afford to go to, the Fringe, you shouldn't really be going. I sort of see what he's saying, but because what it's saying is, yes, Oxbridge types are more likely to have the money to be able to go up there and present themselves. But somebody from a council estate or blah, blah, I don't like the term middle class. I do not like the term middle class because there are middle class people that are living on poverty line and what have you. I think the definition of middle class doesn't exist anymore. If you're junior management, middle management,
just rich and poor.
I'm going to quote Jason Manford here. He coined the term, I believe, muddle class, where you don't really know what class you're in, and that's 100% on the money. Yeah,
and it takes me on to other things, like if you actually have a look at where you can get grant funding and things like that. Grant funding is bizarre because it's so regionally specific. Yeah, they've tried to move things out of London. Brilliant. I get that. Move things out of London because we spread it everywhere. But it tends to be funding for Northern Ireland, Scotland, the Northeast, the Northwest. What happens to the West Country? The most deprived county in the United Kingdom is Somerset, but you're not getting any funding to bring Somerset comedians in. It seems to have got too regionalised in it. But I get his point. You know, if you're challenged for money, how do you make it in this industry? And yeah, it's terrifying. I mean, I was joking to myself. I did a gig on Friday. I got paid for it. Hurrah! I made 50p profit. I got paid £18.60. Sorry, £18.50. My train fare was £18. Even if you get it wasn't a loss leader. It's hard enough on the open mic circuit because that is a loss leader every time. You're paying for it, and then suddenly it's seen by the industry.
The really, really sad thing about that, you couldn't even get a Mars bar from it.
I'm not as poor as I would have been for doing an open mic night. So, you try and it's a sad thing to think that when you actually start getting paying gigs, you're trying to minimise your loss.
Yeah.
Oh, mine.
Right then. Well, I don't know. It could be any one of our. Well,
I just had a wee message there come up saying your internet is unstable, and my mind was like, "Fuck you, I'm more unstable." I'll show you fucking unstable.
Your internet's now a psychologist.
Still trying to fucking
judging your mental state.
Stop drinking my fucking Kool-Aid, cunt. Fucking, this is my fucking fountain.
So if we go into the subject matter for tonight's record, then building a set. Let's go back to our first gigs. Now we all had a sort of like almost a unique experience now compared to what the circuit is now, because obviously we started during the COVID lockdowns and our first gigs were via Zoom. Let me take you back to those days. How did you actually end up preparing for your first Zoom gig? I mean, what did you have? How did you prepare your set? What did you have there to support you?
A bottle of wine.
A good 2-3 pages worth of setups and punchlines written down word for word. There's crib notes.
For me,
in crib notes, or
yeah.
For me, it was a highly aggressive wank as well.
What, during the gig?
Before? Oh no, like 2 minutes beforehand.
Before, during, or afterwards?
No, it was 2 minutes before, and people thought I was hot and flustered, and I was, but you know, not for the same reason they thought.
Because I remember mine. I was borrowing a friend of mine's Wi-Fi in her restaurant, and I'd set my laptop up, and we got to remember, we were only doing 5-minute gigs, and I had 2 sheets of A4 either side of my laptop to get me through that gig. And I look back to that now and go, bloody hell. I mean, I really made life kind of almost difficult for myself. Now, when I do a 10 set, I could actually write it on a credit card, how I've actually got my set, because the way I've learnt my set is so different.
Yeah, for me, initially, it was every single word was written down. Like, as I'd written it out, the script, the attitudes, the colours and everything, the punchlines, the setups and everything, all written out, word for word. It was like a wee little notebook. But awful thinking about it now.
I mean, I still write that way. Don't get me wrong. I still write that way. I still write with the editing format of I've got a P for a punchline, I've got an S for a setup, I've got my attitude, I've coloured it in and what have you, because that helps me in the editing process. But it never leaves the laptop because that's what the rehearsal process is. And I found for me, I don't know if it's true for you guys, I tend to remember the gags better if I've focused on remembering the attitude, because the attitude takes me through the gag.
Yeah. Just you saying I had a P for I had a setup, S for a setup and a P for a punchline. How my brain worked there, I automatically went to the phonetic alphabet and how people fuck it all up.
Yeah.
Just straight, just straight away. Instead of saying pea for pepper, I was like, can I have a pea for I'll have a pea, please, Bob. I'm fucking blockbusters.
What have you changed in your preparation since that first gig, though? I mean, when I say your preparation, what have you changed in the way you build your sets?
How tightly I grip.
I tend to go on the theme of the gag, so and I sort of try and write myself a little story.
Yeah,
and remember it.
Yeah, I give each
this, then I did this. Gabriel read, yeah. First I pulled my pudding, then I went to wash that I washed, and then I came back and I did it again. You know, just
I pulled the middle out myself. I washed myself down, done it again, and basically I was like that until I was red raw.
Went to the confessional box. Saw Father O'Reilly again.
Yeah, Father O'Reilly said, "Whip it out." I was like, "I like your style."
because what I do now, it's a couple of things I end up playing with now. So when I'm writing material, I've given myself the freedom to write about anything, and I keep it in a series of master documents, and I start polishing the gags and things like that. But then what I do is I have a look and see if any of these things are connected, if anything's got a theme, and then I pull them into separate documents around themes. So that way, I think it's the way my brain works, in that if I start on a theme, I can then link them through in that theme. So like the 10 set that I'm just coming to the end of now, because I'm just about to do the semi-finals of South Coast Comedian of the Year. I'm going to be retiring this current 10 set, and it's broken into two themes. And the first theme is me having PTSD. The second theme is why I'm shit with women, to give them a bit of levity. But in my material, I've got things like, right, so me being crap with women, I've got, what's PTSD like? This is why I hate public transport. And then I can actually go, right, take those themes, which gags link into each other well.
Yeah, it's like how I try to remember my gigs. Gigs. I've give them like a title.
Yep.
So it's like I'll have all my Irish gags. So the whole potato thing. Yes, I've got an accent. Women sliding off the chairs, and then I'll link that into my self-deprivation stuff, because it's like, yeah, I sound beautiful. Anyone who disagrees with me, you need to fucking sort it out. But to look at me, I look like Charles Bronson / fucking Brian Blessed. So I link all that in, and then I do the whole Army Irish thing and Army and PTSD stuff. So it's like, yeah, even though I'm Irish, I was in the Army, the British one, not the one with the balaclavas. All that sort of stuff.
I love that gag.
Oh, by the way, I'm now a paid up member of the Jedward Liberation Front. Behind that.
Well, you can go
behind that
for a start, because they're cunts. Like I said, I just give it all titles, and heaven forbid anyone look at the titles, because obviously I've got like Irish, IRA, Army, child abuse. And then I've just got all these lists going down. It's like, anyone saw this list of words, it doesn't look good for me.
For God's sake, please don't let the police inspect your laptop. That would be one hell of a document to explain.
It's all about letting the power of God into you.
I don't know. It's like
didn't realize that God was that painful, or that it needed to enter you from behind.
But it does bring up two interesting points.
I didn't realize that God had to come through the priest's fingers into my arms.
But it does bring, what you just said though, it does bring up two very interesting points, because when you take to the stage, what is the first thing an audience is going to think of you? Now, Gabe, I'm going to put this politely. I was going to be polite and say you've got a very unique look. I
don't. I don't. My fucking like. If I got dressed up for Halloween, my ideas now are like old Kratos from God of War, like middle-aged Charles Bronson and Brian Blessed. At most, I could push to like Father Christmas.
You just need a Norse helmet on, and you're there. You're one of the Birdmen.
Yeah. Well, at most, like my big push is Father Christmas, who's discovered just for men beard. That's it.
But when we do take to the stage, it's that thing of, right, are they going to read something into us just taking to the stage? So, for example, with me, when I walk onto the stage, I've got my assistant's dog. I can't ignore that fact. So, it's one thing to look at your set of when you step on the stage, are they going to make an instant assumption about you? So play with that in your opening. One of the guys I was performing with on Friday, brilliant guy, Travis. Travis, I apologize. I've forgotten your surname now. Bless him. He looks identical to the guy that was the British entry into Eurovision this year. Crossed with Jesus. And when he took to the stage, that was his opening. He went, so what did you think of me in Eurovision? Oh, and those of you that didn't think that, yes, I am the second cup. And he was playing with his but it brings in two things. It brings in two things, doesn't it? Number one, addressing what the instant assumptions could be, but equally, I think we've all discovered it. Get your first laugh as early as possible. Yeah. You don't need to have a lot of setup to get your first laugh in. Your job is a comedian. Get them laughing fast.
Yeah, I think the other one as well, especially with people with me, is like they say, "Oh, I bet you wish your head was on upside down." It's like, why? So I could be the negative of Don King. All right, then.
I like that. Is there anything else you think about when you're constructing a set?
Well, if I'm gonna use certain things like callbacks, I'll try and work them in. So like, I've just come back off holiday, 2 weeks in. I'd like to say sunny Greece. It's actually hotter here than it was there, but that's another story. So I'd try and work some humour in early in my set, and then come back to it. Point in question being the carousel and the fact you've got to wait for what seems like an eternity to get half your suitcase the contents strewn across the entire conveyor belt. Rinse and repeat for when you come home. Yeah, so I'd use the callbacks quite effectively that way, and I think whenever I see a comedian and he uses callbacks, I always think that's really clever. So I like to see if I can use techniques like that in my set.
Yeah.
I haven't managed it yet, but that's something I'm aiming to do.
One of the things I do is I think about, after testing material, and this is one of the things I like, those new material nights, test my material and see where I've got a killer gag, and then actually process my set. So in a 10 set is a classic example of it. Get a killer early on, middle of the set, get a killer in, and finish on a killer. Get them really laughing early, give them another one midway through, and finish off on one. So basically, I think I'm trying to make myself memorable. Beginning, middle, and end are the moments that you're going to be remembered for. So scheduling those in. So you want to go out on a bang, don't you? So I like to finish on something big at the end.
Yeah, I agree with the whole thing of finishing on a high note. Something as a thing to keep you sort of memorable, isn't it?
Yeah, because you want to want to leave the audience thinking, oh yeah, that was the gag that was funny. I remember it because he said it just before he left the stage. And if you can walk off the stage to a round of applause, you've pretty much got it sorted there. Yeah.
It is one of those, you start to realize you've become a comedian when you do your last gag, you say goodbye, and the audience are still applauding when you get back to your seats, and the MC has to then wait for the audience to come down a bit for them to start doing their bit. That's one of the greatest feelings you can get as a comedian, that they are still laughing and applauding as you are walking back to your seat. It's brilliant fun.
Mm-hmm.
We'll pause for a couple of seconds and we'll show you how you can join Project Comedy. And I think that gives us the perfect point to actually let our listeners know how they can get involved with Project Comedy. If you just listen to this little segment, we give you the details on how you, if you are a veteran or still serving, would like to get involved with us in Project Comedy. We've spoken about the fact that often it makes life easier if you put gags together that are all of one theme, and then you can move on to another theme. Do you find you have to engineer it between themes? I mean, how do you segue from, let's take my example, my current 10 set, I'm doing 5 minutes on PTSD, and then I go on to why I'm a dating disaster. They're completely separate subjects. How do you bridge between different themes?
You've got to find some common humor that'll work in both themes, and then use that to bridge in.
See, I really struggle with it. Because a lot of my things that I joke about are really like sporadically all over the show. So finding something to sort of like lead into it, I find it quite difficult to do. So I think I've got a lot of the time I've kind of got to strap my big boy pants on and just go, right, that's the end of that bit.
Or you could do, I think a master of that is Dar O'Brien. He goes on a flight of fancy, and then suddenly he'll go, oh yes, the Bible. It's all, and he uses an effect. So he allows himself to have a butterfly brain with his gags, and then uses a callback to link him back into another theme.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really clever way of playing, and it adds more humor. The fact, the callback itself, the fact he is doing a callback becomes a punchline. So there is a mechanism to pull through. For myself, with the way I do it, is I use the audience. So I think about what the audience is thinking. So if I'm doing my stuff about PTSD, yeah, it's funny, but PTSD isn't a funny subject. So what I do is I turn around to the audience and just go, yeah, all of that shit. So concentrate on something you could have, something that's more important to you, like having a loving, stable relationship. And they're going, oh, right. And I go, something I'm incapable of. And that becomes my segue.
Yeah.
That what I'm actually doing is addressing my audience and trying to go back into what do they want to help me jump from one subject to another.
So you've got a USP with you've got Hawk, so you can use Hawk as well. He's kind of like your top.
Plenty of callbacks for Hawk. I do plenty of callbacks for Hawk. Because again, in the dating thing, it's so easy. Everybody would sooner date my dog than me. So I've had to talk about him at the beginning. Otherwise, why have I walked on with him? And then later in the set, I can, the current one, I'm a Labrador's pimp. It's a brilliant way to call back towards the end of the set. I'm pathetic, the dog's brilliant.
I think my continual callbacks to my ginger step kid.
And it's such a beautiful one to play with. It's just so fun. She's
not beautiful, she's ginger. It's like,
There was another thing I just wanted to say as well, guys, because you and I, we've got more experience than most of our listeners. Well, I say that the people that are listening to this, hopefully they're thinking about giving stand-up a go. And I just want to give them a tip that I've experienced from the circuit. Don't overpressurize yourself. Loads of the guys and girls I see on the circuit do walk onto the stage with their set list written on their hand or on their forearm. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if that's the way that's going to give you the confidence in the early days to get through a set, bloody do it, because other people are doing it. I put undue pressure on myself that I have never done that. I almost wish I had now, because I could have made my early gigs a hell of a lot easier. But yeah, other people on the circuit are doing it, so why not do it yourself? I actually saw one of the guys that got through to the semi-finals with me. He was doing that. He had it written on his hand. Didn't stop him getting through to the semi-finals.
I think if you start now, like, take your script up with you as well. If it's like you say, if it's that much of a security blanket for you, do it. It's much better to be up on the stage and reading from a script than it is to be not on the stage at all.
And equally, go to things like new material nights where they expect it. Really experienced comedians will walk on the stage with a notepad because they are testing new stuff. Go there to get your confidence, learn your stuff, see what works. The other thing I was going to say, and I think you guys do it as well, record your sets. Doesn't mean you have to publish them, but recording your set makes a big difference. It's not necessarily looking for what didn't work. That was what I was doing in the early days, with that joke didn't work, that joke did. No, that will change audience to audience. And you will find that some gags will work, some gags will work in another room. But it's seeing where there are lulls in your set, and you can go, that's where I need to focus. This is the set building stuff. There's a little bit of a lull there, so I need some extra punchlines. I need to lift it in that section. So video in your sets really does make a big difference.
Which can also help with your gig logs as well, that you do after your gig. So you can watch the video and also write your log as well. And it gives you visual clues.
Yeah. As you may have guessed, this is one of the tools that Mr. J. Sodegar gave us on our intermediate training. Is keeping a comedy log is so useful. You're looking at things like, what was the audience, what was the venue, what was the MC like? So you've got a background to what room you've walked into, because you still cannot tell it. I still cannot tell it. Some gags will have everybody killing themselves. Some gags will just die in a different room. And it's sort of like, I was really expecting a big laugh there, but was it the room? But the big thing I use my videos for now is looking at, minute 7. It's a bit quiet in the room there. And then I'll realize I'm delivering it more as a setup than a punchline. So I have to polish that bit and bring the room back in.
Yeah.
There was a bit of a gag, I was thinking of you there, Jay, actually, about, having the confidence to talk in front of people.
Yeah.
And saying about like how one thing is that you to picture the audience naked, which made your first gig really awkward because a lot of your family came.
I was so worried you were going to say
for that reason. The erection was weird.
I was really worried you were going to say you did your first gig in front of primary school kids.
I would be rarely allowed near a school.
Well, and again, for the confidence thing, that was the joy of going through the training with Jay. And I would recommend this to every single comedian. Count your punchlines per minute. Count your punchlines per minute, because that gives you confidence. If you're doing 8 punchlines a minute, that's around about a punchline every 14, 15 seconds, something like that. You've only, well, it's not even, no, it's even less than that, isn't it? If a punchline doesn't land, you're only having to wait 7 to 10 seconds for another laugh. Yeah. You can get so much confidence by knowing what your punchline rate is. If you've written a set and you're only getting 3 punchlines a minute, you're going to have a difficult set. It's a key, and I've now got to the point that I actually don't just do it as my set, I do it punchlines per page. So I can actually go, when I'm doing that theme, I know where it's coming in. Because if I've got a load of one-liners somewhere, that can skew my punchline rate. 1 minute might have 15 punchlines in it, but the previous minute has only got 3. Knowing your punchline rate per page really helps me with the confidence.
I'll tell you another way I've changed since I started. As I used to write set up punchline, set up punchline, set up punchline, list and gags, and then group them into some semblance of order. Whereas now I'll pick a sort of a mini theme, write a few gags on that, pick another theme, write a few gags on that, and then find out a good sequence that blends in well. So it's just a sort of tweak on the writing process.
And it's also that thing that, I didn't realize it until I guess I was about my third gig. It's not set up, punchline, set up, punchline, set up, punchline. What is wrong with doing set up, punchline, punchline, punchline?
Yeah.
Set up, punchline, punchline, punchline.
I do love
Punchline,
punchline.
Yeah. Then not every gag needs a setup. Equally, every setup could have multiple punchlines come off from the end of it.
Yeah, if it's a really good setup, a really well polished setup, you can easily pull multiple punchlines from.
An example of how that changed for me was when I take the piss out of my accent, and no woman is going to be attracted to the West Country accent. It suddenly then naturally flowed into it's 3 punchlines, because it was sort of like no, in the height of passion, no woman's ever going to be turned on by the voice going, "Oh, my lover, that feels delightful. Keep doing that. It feels great, lush. You're so much better than my sister." Suddenly, you've got 3 punchlines from one setup. Yeah, you can play with it there.
Your accent joke about pirates was the best for me.
I'm going to have to go back. I'm going to have to go back to that. What was it? It's sort of like, "Oh, you must love sounding like a pirate." And I went, "No, I don't. I can't do Somalian accent."
Yeah. It's the best one. That's the best one. I love that one.
I'm going to have to drop that one.
I watched a great pirate movie at the weekend, Captain Phillips.
Yeah. In your Cornwall accent or whatever it is, just go like that. "Hey, look at me."
Cornwall.
Cornwall. Look, I don't even belong in this country.
Fucking right, you don't say things like that. You fucking Scotsman.
Hey.
Go on, guys. So what you write? What are you writing at the moment, or are there subjects you want to start writing about?
I'm loving how at the minute, like, physically inept people think that it's fine to go swimming when they can't swim when it's hot. Like, and you never get this in any other sort of realm of life, do you? Like in rush hour, you don't get people who can't walk very fast trying to cross the road. You don't get people who are very, very thin but very, very wide walking around in the wind. Stuff like that. Ginger people, you don't get ginger people going out in the sun.
The one that gets me, I was looking at the other day, I was coming back from archery, and it's sort of like, why are people getting so fucking angry that there's no beach space for them? Because every other fucker in this country wants to lay on a fucking beach. Why are we such fucking sheep that as soon as the sun comes out going, "I must have my own space on the beach"? There's 65 million of us in this country. Everybody's heading for the fucking beach. Did you not think this through?
That's like panic buying, though, isn't it?
Oh, it fucking is. I mean, Jesus. It's the toilet rolls due to sunshine. It's fucking, what the hell is going on with you people?
Have you got anything going on, Jamie?
I've got a load of experiences from the holiday, so hopefully I'm gonna write a nice 5-minute routine on that.
One when I was on holiday was like I got annoyed with how British people go on and basically point out the fact that they're not in Britain by how not British it is. Like, "Oh, I've gone to Spain." "Oh, but it was very Spanish." What the fuck did you want?
Didn't like Tenerife. Didn't have enough Sunday roasts. What the fuck?
Oh, mate. Bread and breakfast. Oh, what was the one thing that I saw on Reddit? Someone was asking, how do you say, "Can I have a full English" in Spanish?
What the fuck?
It's just amazing that, you know, it's like the arrogance that like British people have about going across the world, not knowing how to speak their language, not being able to eat their food. Just blows
That
my
is
mind.
one. That is that is one I'm writing at the moment because I a couple of weekends ago I ended up staying in a hotel for a graduation event for a sports course I've been doing, and I suddenly realised that I am a competitive eater at the all-you-can-eat breakfast. I have now become sort of it is a plan. I get angry. I look at the poor saps that go up and make toast first. What the fuck are you doing? Toast. All you can eat breakfast is dessert. You only have toast if you've not filled up enough on sausages and bacon. But I'm also controversial. I'm also controversial on this. I do not believe baked beans belong in a full English because baked beans are fucking American. That is, you have wasted space on your plate if you put baked beans there.
Yeah, so you could have runner beans.
Oh, I'm gonna throw you a complete
4 hash browns there. You could have easily put 4 hash browns where those beans are. You've wasted valuable plate space.
I am gonna throw your mind completely out the pan now. I cook my baked beans in a frying pan. I fry my baked beans, and I swear to God, it'll change your experience. Fry your baked beans.
I'm trying to work out why.
Because they taste better.
They taste better with potatoes.
Bang them in a frying pan. Throw a little bit of butter in at the end when all the juices has gotten down. And I swear to God, honestly, it's totally different.
And I do love that thing about come and have a full Scottish or a full Irish, and it's sort of like, yeah, all right, call it whatever you fucking want. Just give me more bacon.
I did have this. There was a fella I used to work with in Wigan, and he nearly stopped the ambulance and nearly ripped my head off. Well, he nearly tried to rip my head off. He over the idea that I said it was a full Irish breakfast, and he was like, oh, "No, it's only ever a full English breakfast. Everything else is just a breakfast." I was like, all right. I didn't realize that you were so committed to the word full. But there we go. Like, apparently, it can only ever be a full English breakfast. Everything else is like an Irish breakfast, a Spanish breakfast, whatever.
Well, it's like Tex-Mex, which has nothing to do with Mexico. I mean, Tex-Mex has nothing fucking Mexican in it. It's sort of like, what's that about?
It's Texas chili mixed with Texas food.
I love the people when they go away. Having a normal week, they'll have just maybe but sandwiches and crisps for lunch. They'll go to lunch in an all-inclusive, and they'll pile the plate higher than it is wide of one of everything on the menu because they can.
Jamie, stop fucking following me, right?
Sorry, no. I'm so ridiculous. When we did the Salford gig together, and I stayed in the travel lodge.
People will be killing you.
When I stayed in the travel lodge to do Salford, there we go. I got it right. When we did that gig, I stayed in the travel lodge, and I had to pay $8.99 for my all-you-can-eat breakfast, and that became the challenge. That was the challenge. I wanted $8.99's worth of food, and when I say $8.99's worth, I mean I was going to put enough on my plate for me to buy the raw ingredients. It would have cost me $8.99. That's the way I am getting my all-you-can-eat breakfast. I'm sorry. I am a competitive breakfast eater. If I do not have meat sweats when I walk away from breakfast and I am terminally bunged up by a meat blockage, I have not had breakfast in a hotel.
See, this is why you should just be fat cunts like me. I get my breath. All the time.
The ale in all inclusives is that good. It tastes as strong as pool water. 0.35%. I could literally drink the
Another one
bar
that's got-
dry and I'd still be sober as a judge.
Been more pissed off fucking
Another
Spice
thing
than
that's got me wound up at the moment. Another thing that's got me wound up at the moment because it happened a couple of weeks ago. Going to pubs with delusions of fucking grandeur. There is nothing that winds me up more than walking into a pub, looking at all the taps, and you can't recognize a single one of the fucking beers there. That is a crime against humanity. You get at least have a fucking Guinness tap there. You cannot walk in
Yes.
and it's all these bloody Spanish names and you've never heard of the fucking beer and what. No. There must be something on tap that you know the fucking name of.
You want to what? A Colin? Ugh, we don't
Yeah.
serve that common muck in here.
Do you know what makes me really, really sad? It's like bitter is a British drink, particularly, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
we are a bitter nation.
Yeah, but where is the bitter name? You go to
It's
a
real
bar,
ale.
you go to an
Yeah.
actual bar or a pub, there is very rarely a bitter there. And I don't mind a bitter. I'm obviously a stout and a porter kind of guy. But I'd love to see more. Why is everyone jumping on the bandwagon and all these fucking shitty IPAs?
Oh, another one that happened to me. They claimed they had a bar, a venue. They claimed they had a bar. What they actually had was a fridge that you walked up to, you selected your drink and you paid for it at the counter. Every fucking beer was in a 330 milliliter can, the same size as a can of fucking Coke, and they're charging £6 for it. What the fuck is that about?
Dirty bastards.
It looks rustic. No, it's a fucking rip-off. That is not a bar. Do not even claim that is a bar. That is not
Where
a
the
bar.
fuck
If
are
it's
they
coming
sleeping
out of a
tonight?
tin,
They're making
I
at
don't
least
care if
£5
it's
on every
steampunk IPA.
drink there. That's dirty, that. Oh, that's dirty.
It makes you feel like you're on holiday without leaving the country.
One thing that pisses me off with bars at the minute is gin glasses.
Oh, fuck me. How
It's
big have they
not-
got?
It's not a fucking gin glass, right? Because I've been drinking gin for years, and only in the last couple of years have these big twatty goldfish bowls fucking turned up. Brandy has a glass, whiskey has a glass, and all them ones, right? That is not a fucking gin glass. Stop calling it a fucking gin glass.
It's not. It's an oversized fucking wine balloon. I mean, what the fuck is this?
It's just pretentiousness in sand.
You know you're in a strange drinking establishment when they give you a gin in something it looks like Magic Meg is reading the fucking future out of.
I don't want to drink that comes in a glass that's bigger than my head.
Ponzi glasses do wind me up. They really do. It's sort of like I sort of get this thing about certain beers go in certain glasses, but when you go into a pub and it's sort of like suddenly you're drinking a pint from something in this ridiculously long-stemmed glass. What the fuck's that? Just give me a pint. I want a pint in a pint glass. That's what I want. The content is the important thing, not the fucking glass.
I had someone going on at me as well about a Guinness, right? So I ordered a Guinness, and they took about another, instead of pouring it properly, which pisses me off anyway.
Yeah.
They did a little shamrock in it because they heard my accent, because obviously my missus drinks Guinness as well.
No.
So they gave her a regular Guinness and they put a shamrock in mine. To which then I just wiped my finger across the fucking top of it and flicked it on the bar. And I went, "The paint's not a fucking painting." Also, why didn't you do that for fucking her?
Yeah.
You know,
Oh god.
if you're gonna be a dick about it, if you're gonna call me a dick for fucking just ruining your little bit of shitty artwork on my pint.
Please tell me there was a neon green clover leaf outside the pub as well.
Oh no, it wasn't like a Irish bit.
About as Irish as Boston.
Yeah. Oh mate, we went to Liverpool and there was an Irish American bar there.
An Irish American bar in Liverpool.
Yeah. And I was just like,
What
so
the
not
fuck?
an Irish bar then.
The world gets crazier by the minute.
My local
Anything else?
booze has got it does cocktails. It does these sharing cocktails. So the guy at the bar, after I'd ordered my drinks, had got this massive, so the glasses that you do the porn star drinks in.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Wide
Like
brim
martini.
one. He got one that was like 5 times as big. And I says to him, "What's that you do?" "No, oh, it's a porn star sharer." And my missus was with me. She said, "I wouldn't share." And I said, "No, for 20 quid, I wouldn't let you either."
It makes me laugh as well because people buy these things thinking like, yeah, but this one's 20, it's got like 5 drinks in it and it's 20 quid and normally they're like 6 quid. You're like, do you think the bar's making a loss, you dickhead?
I'm just thinking, Jamie, I was just thinking, isn't a porn star sharer, isn't that called a gangbang?
Yeah, it's called an orgy.
This is what I don't get as well. It's like a porn star sharer is just a regular porn star, isn't it?
And would somebody explain the concept of an espresso martini to me? What the fuck are you doing?
You wanting to wake up or you want to go sleep? Come on, which one is it?
I suffer enough with anxiety and depression. I mean, I don't need a drink that will do exactly the same thing. I mean, I do think that anxiety and depression is effectively the vodka Red Bull of psychiatric illness. All you want to do is hide, but you've got to be looking around everywhere at the same fucking time. Why am I going to have a drink that does exactly the same thing to me?
I remember we were out in a trendy bar in Manchester and it really irritated me because it was a fucking trendy bar. I was the only fella there that had a pair of socks on. That's how trendy it was. Right? And there was these girls who were behind me and they paid something like £7.50 for a fucking espresso martini. And they were doing the whole picture thing with it, right? And all this sort of bullshit. And someone else joined the queue and they said, "Oh, they look really nice. Do they taste nice?" And he said, "No, it's horrible." But they carried on drinking it and it's just like, why have you paid £7.50 for a horrible fucking drink?
The world.
Then they as well. The worst thing, you got another one. It's like when your Instagram takes over your life that much, like you are willing to put yourself through £7.50's worth of drink torture. Not for me, pal.
I think that's just given us a couple of damn good examples of what we were talking about earlier. We've just been chatting about what we're writing at the moment. I'm going to listen back to this and go, hang on, how do we segue between those conversations? Because that isn't something natural you want to end up doing in a set. I hope that our listeners have got some kind of idea of what they want to put into their set planning. It's not just about writing gags. You've got to write gags all the time. You just got to keep on writing. But to actually turn it into a set, there is logic behind it because you're trying to generate a performance. We haven't given you the definitive answer because I don't think there is one. In fact, if you're a one-line comedian, well, you could ignore everything we've just said for the last hour and a bit. But all I can do is thank my fellow hosts, Gabe and Jamie, for their input to this. Cheers, guys. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And as always, we'll finish off by telling you how you can follow us on social media. So, until next time.
Bye-bye.
TTFN.
If you want to see what we're actually like on stage, please have a look at our YouTube channel. Search for Project Comedy, Veterans Doing Stand-Up, and look for our black and white logo that's exactly the same as the one we use for this podcast. You can also now follow us on Twitter. We can be found at Proj Comedy. That's at PROJ Comedy. And me, Jay Saunders, I can be found on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter if you look for Comic J Saunders. That's all one word with the letter J in the middle. Comic J Saunders. Thanks again to everyone that's taken part in this episode. Until next time. Thanks for listening to the Project Comedy Podcast. Please support our veterans as they continue their comedy journeys. To find out more, including gigs our veterans are doing, please search for the Project Comedy group on Facebook, where you'll also find links to Project Recce, the veterans charity that makes Project Comedy possible.